Mm. So the Lion of Judah is also not Satan. The Lion of Judah isn't Satan. He's more like one of Satan's lower order minions, and he's a really scared, weird little guy. Um, he's not as tall as they come. Okay, he's kind of maybe about 5'10" or 5'11" tall, so he's kind of average height. So the Lion of Judah, with so this is a message we're getting from the spaceships. The Lion of Judah is a minion um of Satan's, and he's he's very small. He's only 5'11". He's demonic, of course. That's not really surprising. And he's a horse with a lion's face. Because the reason why the horses have lion's face is because they lie all the time. That's why it's called the Lion of Judah, because he lies all the time. And also, one thing you need to know about it is that there was occult symbolism to Clive Palmer's Trumpet of Patriots story. And so he had this symbol, right? Okay, get this right. He had this symbol. He had this symbol of a lion's face with some trumpets sticking out. What is joke political party that got no seats? Because the entire male constellation of Leo has no power anywhere. So the Lion of Judah is the male constellation Leo, and he's been completely dethroned as a physical person because he was full of hot air and he was talking shit. And so what Clive Palmer was doing was setting up the Lion of Judah by pretending that he was a big boss. He was the president of the USA. He was all these kinds of things. He's going to take over Australia. But the Lion of Judah never took over Australia. The Lion of Judah went home empty-handed. Lion of Judah went home empty-handed. Just like the Trumpet of Patriots. And the trumpets went home too. Empty-handed as well. And they went back to Birmingham in Canada where they came from. You know, because it's a one-horse town. And they said, X marks the spot there. And some pirates came and they dug out some treasure at X marks the spot in Birmingham, Canada. And there they found Neil deGrasse Tyson lying on the floor next to X marks the spot, wearing a red armband with an X on it. The new Nazi party, called the Nazi party. Instead of a Z, they've got an X. The Nazi party. And I said, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, what are you doing that for? And he said, well, you know, the Lion of Judah put it on him. I said, what did they put on him for? I said, because he was part of the new atheist movement, so he must be a Nazi. Because everyone who doesn't worship the mystic Kabbalah or fucking holy fucking Bible or gematria or fucking astrology must be a fucking Jew hater. Never mind all those Christians that were doing pogroms on them during the medieval era. Never mind the Masons actually ripped off Kabbalah. Never mind that Kabbalah didn't exist outside of European Jewry, well, in the first place, and was invented in the Renaissance in Europe. Never mind that it makes no fucking sense. Even the context of immaterial polydualism. No. You gotta have the Lion of fucking Judah. And the New Age movement said they wanted the fucking Lion of fucking Judah too. which is why they elected Donald Trump. Now, it turns out Donald Trump is associated strongly with the number 616. Now, here's why he's associated with the number 616. Okay? Because that is a reference to his birthday, 6th of June. See, Donald Trump was born on the 6th of June. So he's got 2 6s in his birthday, if you're into that sort of thing. And he was born at 1 a.m. on the 6th of June, 1946. Did you hear that? Donald Trump was born on the 6th of June, 1946. So, he thinks he's the Lion of Judah because he thinks the Lion of Judah is the devil. Well, the devil is not the God of this world, you see. Because Australia didn't become America. Australia kicked out the Lion of Judah, his lion trumpets. Australia kicked out the USA. Australia kicked out Donald Trump. Okay? And so, because of the egregor associated with fortune, called kekistocracy or whatever, with the green alien thing, or a frog, sorry. It wasn't an alien, it was a frog. What happened is that he was the god of darkness, so he used a lot of alcohol, you see. And that meant he has Korsakoff syndrome. He spent too much time at the 19th hole, and now he's got Korsakoff syndrome, like Donald Trump. You can only have so many beers or cognacs, in that man's case, at St. James Island, or Little St. James Island, off the coast of Puerto Rico, before it gets to your head and it starts melting. That head starts melting. So Donald Trump has Korsakoff syndrome from years of chronic alcoholism, and he acts a bit like a meth head, but his star sign's not Leo, it's Gemini. And the reason why it's Gemini, why the devil, who is not the god of this world, because Australia fucking says so, is associated with star sign Gemini, is to show the two-faced nature of the papacy. So you've got the light pope and you've got the dark pope. Sometimes a Jesuit pope is associated with a dark pope. So you'll probably find that Pope Francis, being a Jesuit, was the black pope. Not Peter the Roman, Pope Francis. Peter the Roman is probably not going to be the next pope. It's probably going to be the Filipino guy. Be the Filipino guy, because one of the things that the popes have been doing since the reign of Pope John Paul II is been electing popes that deal with stories associated with different eras. And typically they're connected to the overthrow of empires. So in the case of John Paul II, he was personally affected by what the Nazis did in Poland, as well as Poland being overtaken by the USSR. So when he became the Pope, one of the things he did was support the Solzhenitsyn Revolution, which led to the overthrow of the USSR. When he passed away, Joseph Ratzinger took over, and he was a German man from Munich, and his job was to act with humility as much as he could, which was next to impossible, considering some of the things he did, in relation to his role in the cover-up of child abuse. That had the consequence of placing the blame on Germany in practice, okay, but in word, what he said was he blamed the hippies of the 1960s for the priest confusion, and then he abdicated. And as he abdicated, a lightning bolt hit the basilica to indicate that the heavens agreed that blaming the hippies was ill-advised, that blaming Germany was correct, and Germany was correct in abdicating. The next pope that took over was Pope Francis. His birth name was George. He was born in a place in South America called Argentina. Now, Argentina wasn't the country that Pinochet took over. However, they're pretty close neighbours. So there was a lot of Chileans running into Argentina going, help, help, Pinochet's a fuckwit. He heard that, didn't like it very much. And when he became the Pope, he took the name Francis after St. Francis of Assisi, which means he would be dedicated to be anti-aristocratic, pro-humanitarian, and pro-environmental. As that was a bit strange considering his gold rings and whatever else. True. He also told of J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. And in his tenure, we see the fall of the United States Empire. So, the next pope is probably going to be the Filipino one, because at the moment, the president of the Philippines is none other than Ferdinand Marcos Jr. And Ferdinand Marcos Jr. was part of Ferdinand Marcos Sr.'s dictatorship in the 1970s as his son, his adult son, by the way. And as far as anyone knows, the Marcos regime never paid back the $15 billion they stole from the Filipino treasury before they fled to, don't actually know which island it was, but it was outside the Philippines, and they were convicted in court of the theft in the United States. In 1986, when the revolution happened in the Philippines to overthrow the Marcos dictatorship, a lady took over as the president. And she said that the constitution would be amended so that a president may not serve any more than one term. As a consequence, it's no longer possible for anyone to engage in dictatorship practices without breaching the Constitution. So what you'll notice in the United States is breaching the Constitution as part of the dictator's practices. Anyway, one of the things that happened is that there's a mixture of opinions in the Philippines about, and for people of Filipino heritage, about what the Marcos dictatorship meant to them. However, in all cases, it meant fear. One way or another, it meant fear. A lot of the people that live in Australia who are from the Philippines arrived in Australia because of the Marcos dictatorship, either during it or in the years that followed, as the country attempted to repair from the damage that caused. People who are looking for a better life. So, I'm not going to be surprised if the next Pope is the Filipino one. What that guy will probably do is he'll probably tell people that the support of dictatorships in any country is ill-advised, and he recommends that, of course, that any debts owed to the Philippines is paid back. And that if there are any people in the Philippines that require the support of their Pope in the moral sense to overthrow dictators, they would continue in that direction, because Pope Francis stood up against terror in the United States, so why wouldn't he stand up for it at home? It'd likely be the case also that he would say he would follow in the traditions of John Paul II. What he might also do is appeal to any Catholicism that Ferdinand Marcos Jr. might claim to have. And what he might say there is this. He might say, well, you know what? He'll abdicate if the president of the Philippines abdicates. If Ferdinand Marcos Jr. abdicates, then the Pope from the Philippines will as well. And then they'll say, why would you do that for? You're prophesied to be the last Pope. And you'll say, no, he's not the last Pope. But Ferdinand Marcos Jr. be the last fucking son of a dictator running that fucking country. And Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were the last people pretending they're fucking Christians when they're carrying on like that about immigrants running away from a dictator named Maduro in Venezuela. As a consequence, the Vatican won't fall. And when the Vatican doesn't fall, what they'll see is their prophecies were wrong. And there's a whole bunch of misplaced ideas. One time it's Malachi, the other time it's Nostradamus, the other time it was a Catholic nun from the 1500s. They can't make up who made the prophecy. They're just arguing that's going to be the case. They used to say it was Pope Francis. Oh, now it's going to be this other one. They're calling it Peter the Roman. They keep changing the story, and whoever's telling it, they keep looking for the end of day scenario. Now, as luck would have it, the Humanicists turn around and say, it's not an end of days, it's renewal, it's a rebirth, it's things like that. No, it's not. It is a genuine end, but it's the end of empires. Will it be the end of the Vatican Empire? This we shall see. But it is going to be the end of the English Empire. It is going to be the end of the American Empire. That part you can tell. Because Donald Trump got kicked out of Australia. The Americans being kicked out of Australia means that one of their central bases of surveillance probably won't be operational soon. We anticipate the ADF will be taking it over out of concern that a fascist organisation called the Trump administration might misuse it. Australians, after all, have the right to control their military bases. It seems fitting that the ADF will control Pine Gap facility, considering it is actually their responsibility. It also seems fitting if they were respectful and consulted the people whose land it's on, because it may actually be a sacred site, and respecting that sacred site might be more important than people realise. As a consequence, you will not get your Messiah until Pine Gap is removed. Here's why you can't get your Messiah until Pine Gap is removed. Because your Messiah has to carry 7 stars. In the book of Revelation, the 7 stars represent the Pleiades. The Pleiades is also known as the 7 Sisters Dreaming. An important sacred site for the 7 Sisters Dreaming is where the Pine Gap facility is. If the United States of America closes down the Pine Gap facility, you'll get your Messiah. Until then, you won't.